So Republicans are obsessed with what they call the LGBTQ agenda. And across the country, they have introduced hundreds of anti-LGBTQ plus bills this year, including those banning gender-affirming healthcare for trans youth. And so the rhetoric also is so high that the Human Rights Campaign declared it a national state of emergency for the community. What do you feel about that? And what advice do you have for anybody who wants to be an ally to the community?
Well, of course, I feel incredibly sad about it.
Yeah.
And angry. And frightened, and I know
Worried.
a lot of people
Worried.
are. And I think, when I think of, for example, the trans community, and I think of how most people, the vast majority of people, don't know or think they don't know a trans person. And so the amount of misinformation and just true flat out lies about our lives, who we are, our healthcare, spread. And I really want to encourage people to educate yourselves, to listen to trans people, to listen to trans youth, to listen to the parents of trans youth, many of whom were in denial about a certain situation.
Your mom when she was
Yes.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in an attempt to tackle the notion of toxic masculinity, there was a school in southwest London that decided it was important to put forward some positive examples of masculinity. That sounds reasonable. The problem is they are using a female as an example of positive masculinity and Harry Styles. Yes, that's right. When this concept of toxic masculinity was first presented, it basically came across as the notion that if you're a man, then you're a problem just for being a man. Now, I know I talk about men on this channel, not in the most positive light at times, but obviously I'm talking about men who are trying to replace women, men who want to be accepted as women when that is just scientifically impossible and no one should be forced to go along with a lie. But in terms of just regular men, I am not against simply a man being a man having masculine traits. Now, there are always exceptions, and I'm not saying fitting stereotypes is what makes somebody masculine or feminine. But there's nothing wrong with celebrating men as providers, men as examples of strength, men as protectors. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. And Andrew Tate is not a representative of all men. And if anything, I don't think he's an example of masculinity whatsoever. But they use people like Andrew Tate, who was a self-professed pimp, to push this idea that simply being a man is toxic, unless you are super effeminate and go against all of the ideas of what masculinity is meant to be. And here we have a classic example. We're having a woman put forward as an example of masculinity, a female who identifies as a man. We're talking about Elliot Page, formerly known as Ellen Page. And I don't care what medication she's on, whether she's on steroids. This is not an example of masculinity. And it reeks of an agenda of the schools in the UK to vilify boys, to vilify men. So the school teacher of Streatham Wells School had the following to say about this push to present so-called positive examples of masculinity. She wrote, "It is important to teach pupils about harmful stereotypes about masculinity. However, if the first time we teach and name masculinity is calling it toxic, that could do more damage than good to our boys. It is extremely important to teach about positive masculinities. We need to encourage empathy, kindness, sharing emotions, listening to alternative points of view, and developing emotional literacy. Undoing the deeply ingrained gender stereotypes in our society takes time. It's certainly not a quick fix. We have seen a significant improvement in children's awareness of key issues surrounding gender equality. They know how to use their voice to advocate for others." So that statement by itself doesn't sound bad. It's saying, yeah, We need to move away from stereotypes and, the negative stereotypes. But when you look at the examples they're putting forward, this is nothing but indoctrination. This is nothing but a fallacy. Presenting kids with lies and trying to get them to think a certain way. If we can put a woman who wants to identify as a man as an example of masculinity, that is nothing but pushing this idea that a woman can be a man and a man can be a woman. So Elliot Page, a Canadian actor, I didn't know Elliot Page was Canadian, who medically transitioned with cross-sex hormones along with gender surgery and now identifies as a man, showed that masculinity can mean softness and strength. You could have used an actual man to demonstrate that. If anything, this shows me how much they hate biology, how much of a disdain they have for basic biology. I can't even believe this is a thing. It's still going on in 2025. So Elliot Page was used as an example along with singer Harry Styles. Next, it will be Sam Smith as an example of masculinity. When really, these are boys, or actually men, who don't seem to like being men much. They don't seem to like it. And obviously, Elliot Page didn't want to continue being recognized as a woman, now identifies as a man. So if anything, this is encouraging people to hate who they are. That's how I see it. Primary school children. Why would this be something that is introduced in primary school? Any school, really, any public school. People are paying their tax dollars towards these schools to indoctrinate impressionable children. There's no justification for that. And these kids can look at Elliot Page and see that this is a woman. Come on now. They're not going to look at Elliot Page and I don't care how short somebody's hair is. The moment you look at this person, you know that this is a woman. And this person is female. So Elliot Page has been in Juno, Inception and X-Men, publicly came out as gay in 2014 and as transgender in 2020, using the pronouns he, they. So the head teacher, Sarah Wardlaw, she wrote that statement for an online newsletter called TeachWire, speaking about the school's efforts to tackle toxic masculinity and violence against women. She finished her statement saying, "Moving forward, we are going to continue to work on representation in our curriculum. This is not just representation of the amazing strong women who have shaped global history, but also representation of positive masculinity. We need to show that to be a man is not to be simply one thing. To do so, we highlight well-known figures such as Harry Styles and Elliot Page. They show that masculinity can mean softness and strength, and everything in between." So she's claiming that she wants to present positive masculinity, when really you shouldn't really categorize masculinity into positive and negative. It's just masculinity. Qualities or attributes regarded as characteristic of men or boys. So I don't really see the need to categorize positive and negative. Just like I don't really see the need to categorize positive and negative femininity. It's just attributes attributed to men and attributes attributed to women. That's it. But a toxic masculinity, I think that was coined out of a dislike for men, a dislike for men being who they typically are. Men having their own characteristics, men and women being different. I think there's a push to deny that, to deny the differences between men and women, and that's why we're here today, dealing with what we're dealing with. But then to claim that you want to push positive examples of masculinity, which doesn't involve actually presenting anything that's masculine, presenting people or men who are masculine, that shows me an underlying hatred for masculinity, an underlying disdain for masculinity. When you want to redefine what it is to be masculine, when you want to present effeminate men and females as examples of masculinity. We have an emphasis on softness rather than strength. We have an emphasis on self-hatred rather than being self-assured. All the things that make up, masculinity, it's being turned on its head. And it's the fact that this is being targeted towards, young boys, towards primary school kids, is even more disturbing. It's trying to get children to deny how they view the world just instinctively. When they look at a person, they know that this person's male. They know that this person is female. They're trying to get kids to come away from that basic way of thinking, that basic knowledge, and to see everything through a lens that lines up with gender ideology, to see everything through a lens that looks down on men, looks down on boys. They don't want positive masculinity. They don't want positive examples of masculinity. They just want to redefine what masculinity is. Just like they want to redefine what it is to be a woman, replacing women with men and vice versa. That's what we're seeing. It's very, very perverse, in my opinion, and it has no place in public schools. Some educational professionals have suggested that holding up a trans man as a positive example of masculinity might undermine the intended message that biological men can be gentle and caring. Streatham Wells Primary and the Charter Schools Educational Trust, which runs the school, were approached for comment. There's nothing wrong with saying that men can be caring, men can have a softer side. Nothing wrong with saying that whatsoever.
I see you struggle like butterflies in water, can't keep moving forward. I see your shoulders weighted down by armor. You don't need that protection. I would walk on glass, I would run 10,000 miles and more. I would give my eyes if you lost your sight. I would run through fire, I would carry you through the heat. I would do it all again if you needed me to. Wish that I could take away your pain like sunbeams in the rain. Oh, we're family.
But use men as your example, and use men who are self-assured and know that they're men and are happy with being men, rather than men who want to, present themselves as women. People did think that this was parody. People couldn't believe that this is a real thing, and yes, it is. Telling little boys that a damaged woman is the ideal of manhood? Awful, isn't it? Just broken. I'm confused. Wouldn't using a woman pretending to be a man to demonstrate masculine points insult and demean the actual boys being told they aren't good enough? Unless boys and men reject who they are not going to escape the label of toxic masculinity in the eyes of these woke individuals. That's very disturbing. You're embraced when you reject who you are, when you reject your natural traits that have been innate and instilled in you as men. Until you reject those things, you're not going to be seen as anything other than toxic. That's the message I'm seeing here. Instead, we're going to lie to the boys and manipulate them and teach them self-hate because they can never be girls and they are being told that they must be girls. It's so messed up. So they still don't accept masculinity as a healthy trait. That was my contribution. See, boys, you're just fine. The best boys used to be girls. So does this surprise you that this is going on in the UK in the primary schools? Now, I'm a little surprised, to be honest. I never expected a trans man to be propped up as an example of positive masculinity in an effort to say that we want to come away from using terms such as toxic masculinity. We're going to present a woman as an example of masculinity. Just when you think these people can't go any lower, they surpass themselves. So, the only advice I could give is, other than homeschool immediately, is know what your kids are being taught, monitor it very, very closely. Because if it wasn't for this article, we wouldn't be aware of this. If it wasn't for them actually thinking that this is a good thing, and broadcasting this, talking about this publicly on a teacher's website, you know, we wouldn't know that this was going on. And that's the most disturbing thing of all. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.